U.S. and Iran trading strikes after the downing of an Army Apache helicopter.
The U.S. military hitting nearly 24 targets near the Strait of Hormuz, with the Iranians reportedly taking aim at American assets across the Gulf region. Let's get right to Trey Inks live in Tel Aviv with the details. Trey.
Yeah, Todd, Carly, good morning. Overnight, President Trump ordered serious strikes against the Iranian regime in response to the downing of an Apache helicopter. A senior U.S. official told Fox News fighter jets hit 20 different sites, including air defense systems and radar sites. CENTCOM said in a statement U.S. forces remain vigilant and postured to defend against unjustified Iranian aggression. These strikes came in multiple waves. Following the first wave, Iran's foreign minister posted to X, saying in part, quote, "Our powerful armed forces will leave no attack or threat unanswered. Leave our region if you want to be safe." History of the Persian Gulf has many chapters on dire fates of intruding outsiders. Shortly after, the Iranians responded with missiles and drones launched toward U.S. forces in Bahrain, Kuwait, and Jordan. The main target, according to the IRGC, was the U.S. Navy's Fifth Fleet in Bahrain. This, as Iran's foreign ministry called on neighboring countries to prevent any use of their territories and facilities against Iran. Iran did not target Israel during their response, although the Israelis are continuing the fight against Iran-backed Hezbollah in Lebanon. New evacuation orders were given to civilians in southern Lebanon this morning, an indication that more bombing could take place in the hours ahead. Certainly right now, it doesn't appear that there is a ceasefire in the Middle East, and there are major questions about if the region is headed toward more conflict or a diplomatic solution. Todd, Carly?
Yeah, and that's the real question. Trey, the last time you spoke to the president, he said a deal was within reach and could happen at some point this week. Given this renewed fighting amid the ceasefire, what should we make of that timeline?
Yeah, it's a great question. The president's been working overtime to try and reach a diplomatic solution with the Iranian regime that would ultimately open the Strait of Hormuz, address Iran's nuclear ambitions, and de-escalate the instability across the region right now. The Iranians appear unserious at best at actually reaching a deal, and they continue this provocative action like shooting down a U.S. military helicopter with 2 crew members inside. Now, those crew members were rescued, but it's an indication that they are still trying to control the Strait of Hormuz area, and the president isn't going to allow it. It's the reason that he launched these strikes last night against the regime, going after multiple targets in many different waves, trying to send a message to the Islamic Republic that if they want to continue on the battlefield, they will pay a heavy price. Todd, Carly?
Trey Inks live for us in Tel Aviv. Trey, thank you so much. Let's bring in Director of the American Military Project and Army veteran Will Tebow. Will, thank you so much for being with us today. I mean, you look at the areas that the United States hit: Iranian air defense, ground control stations, and surveillance radar sites near the Strait of Hormuz. It sounds like it's designed to help us down the road if a negotiated settlement isn't reached. What are your thoughts on what took place yesterday and where things stand today?
Carly, I think that's exactly right. President Trump is exercising American power in a way that maintains optionality down the road. We're dismantling their air defense and radar systems so that if there is the necessity to escalate and to conduct more military action, Iran has degraded defenses. That means they won't be able to get in the way of us achieving our military objectives. But I think President Trump is also open-minded to the fact that he clearly seeks a diplomatic resolution, and he is not willing to needlessly escalate beyond what is required to make Iran feel necessary pain for attacking U.S. assets in the region, as well as our allies. This is, I think, a rare but necessary display of the artful balance of American power that still preserves our interests, make sure that folks in the region know that you can't attack us with impunity, but also means that we're keeping an eye on whatever the future holds and whatever kind of military resources may be necessary to truly bring the Iranian regime to bear. I think we hope, and President Trump hopes, it's diplomacy, but we're not blind to the fact that more war might be necessary if Iran doesn't choose this path of peace.
Yeah, that's really the question, Will, because so far military action and diplomacy haven't gotten Iran to a place to enter into a negotiated settlement in a strong enough place that the president is pleased with. So what do you think needs to happen? Is it more kinetic steps, or are we going to go down this diplomatic road in the future?
I think there's still a lot of momentum, Carly, towards some diplomatic, at least an intermediate solution. Even in these call it tit-for-tat responses, you can still get the sense that neither Iran nor the United States is taking the necessary steps up the escalatory ladder to truly restart this war beyond the confines of the ceasefire. Thankfully, since some of the escalation over the weekend, Iran hasn't reinitiated attacks on Israel. And the United States is clearly holding back some of our most devastating potential military action. We're focusing on air defense, radar systems, the Iranians' defensive infrastructure that could become problematic to us if we don't take care of it, if the necessity for escalation does, come to bear in the future. And so what I think that demonstrates is that, it's this tense standoff, but there is still this openness towards a desire, in a desire to bring some semblance of a negotiated settlement to bear. Yeah. Obviously, as you highlight, there's a lot up in the air, but I think there's still a path.
Talk to us about the rescue of these two crew members by a USC drone, a first-of-its-kind mission. The drone picked them up and flew them to safer waters. Talk to us about what that sort of mission would look like, and also what it says about our U.S. military power.
Yeah, it's a really exceptional story, Carly, but I will tell you, it is something that starts from the top of this administration. President Trump and Secretary Hegseth have made transformation of the military a top priority since January of 2025. The onboarding of unmanned surface vessels like the one that rescued those two Apache pilots has accelerated dramatically in less than 18 months. And, these are bets that the military has taken on new revolutionary technology after seeing some lessons learned in the war between Russia and Ukraine to rush capability to the battlefield and to the edge, as they say, so that it is in place when Americans need it and when lives are on the line. That has required Secretary Hegseth to break the traditional bureaucracy of the Pentagon to make sure that technology can come on board a lot faster than it otherwise would have. And now we see just one way in which that's paying off. I think it's an exceptional story, obviously, for that USV company, for the Navy, for those Apache pilots, of course, too. But it is a tale of just how important it is to have strong, assertive leadership who are willing to break a few rules to make sure that our warfighters have the technology they need to win on the battlefield today.
Bets that the U.S. military took and bets that certainly took off. Will Thibault, thank you so much for joining us.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.